Hello, and welcome to another video. This video I'm going over preferences and UI, and a couple other things like movement and keybinding. First thing I want to get into is this is how my UI currently looks. We will reset my UI and we'll go through the settings. Some of my settings will be actually different from somebody that's just starting the game, or somebody that hasn't gone through and changed these. So I will show you guys my settings and all of that, which is very important. There's a lot of things I'm going to cover here that you probably won't even think about, even if you're an experienced player. Back when I first did this video, there's still relevant information in that video. I, however, now know a lot more than what I knew back then. So I'm going to not only share that, but explain a couple of things that you probably don't even know anything about. So first thing I'm going to do is, if you want my UI, by the way, I'll have my Twitter link down below, and my pinned tweet is a link to download my UI, and it's not too hard to install something like that. But first thing I'm going to do is go in Interface Editor, and we'll just go to Advanced, which is let me load this again. Load, there we go. This is like the basic something that you would probably log in with. My keybinds are going to be a little bit different, granted, but I believe it would be Alt-M to close that little map. I think that's default keybind now. So my UI looks a lot different, right? Wouldn't say necessarily this is bad. You can set up your UI however you want to. What I would definitely recommend is that when you're playing MMOs in general, there's a reason why I have my name tag, HP bar. If I could turn off like titles like the Infernal, Invasion Commander, Flares, just have the name and the class icon, I would love to have a resource bar in between these two. This bottom bar right here is result bar. When you basically build resolve, it will start going white. I'll show you how to turn that on here soon. But usually want your eyes around here at all times. You want to be able to see what's going on in this area. So having a top-down view is very helpful. But if there's like a roof like this, like Outer and Civil War and other maps, you're going to want to have it more like down so you can actually see what's going on. But your eyes generally want to be in this area. Your eyes don't want to be down here. If your eyes are down here, you're not able to basically understand what's going on. You're not going to see that you're hitting into defensives. You're not going to see a lot of stuff that's really important. So for example, I know where all my abilities are. I know all my abilities, and most of my abilities I already know their cooldown, so via muscle memory. You can also learn that too. Another thing to think about is also sound cues. So for example, when I do this and I proc my rail shot, my character does a laugh. Not all the sound cues are still in the game. A lot of them are actually gone, but some of them still exist. And I highly recommend turning the sound on just so you can actually hear that. Now going into the first thing before we go into UI and settings like that, we're going to go over controls. Here you can really change whatever you want. From the last time that I made this video, camera rotation speed did not work. It was mouse acceleration. Now mouse acceleration is gone. This actually works. I play on 800 DPI, so I have it only on 5%. It's sometimes too fast for me, and sometimes it's too slow to me. It really depends on what game I was last playing. Definitely make your camera max distance 100%. This allows you to see a lot more. And then you need to turn on enable focus target if you plan on using it at all. And I also prefer to have use quick slots on key press. So as soon as you press the button, it'll go off instead of lifting up your finger and then it going off. And then auto target closest enemy. The way that works, since these guys are yellow, I can actually attack them. If I go and hit, let's say I want to hit one. One's over here so you guys can see. It's automatically going to target. So that's what auto target does. Auto target actually works, and it's pretty good. I highly recommend it. Now, going past this, we have ability action queue window. This is weird. Most games have this. Even WoW has this. Average global cooldown is around 1.4 to 1.5. 1.5 is pretty much the generic forever until you get min-maxed and better gear. And then if you're like one of the few specs like Lightning, Arsenal, Carnage, you'll have maybe 1.3. But for the most part, this right here is basically queuing up your actions before you can actually use them. So the importance of that on most specs, outside of like operative. Operative is probably the best one for me to explain this to you on, but I'm not on operative, forgive me. But AP is probably one of the better classes to actually make use of this at 0.5 or 0.25. If you were to have it on 0, you'd pretty much never accidentally double roll on operative, for example. But let's say you are on 0.5 and you're playing operative. You try to get your roll. Sometimes you might accidentally double roll because you're spamming it. Operative roll has like somewhat of a build-up time for it to actually go off. So that's a problem. I definitely recommend, at least on operative, to put it at 0.0 if you're having that issue where you're double rolling. Other than that, 2.5 to 0.5 is pretty good for most classes, and those people with higher latency or are just, older, or your reaction speed isn't that good, or you're just kind of out of it today, it's definitely worth increasing this. It'll allow you to get abilities off that you probably wouldn't get off otherwise. Sorry about that. Now, going into these things at the bottom here, what this means is, well, basically, it'd be better to show you, but you want to turn these on. You don't necessarily need to have this one, but it is sometimes nice because it'll allow you to not waste it, but sometimes it will cause issues and not go off instantly because of it. But quick ground target activation is basically, I'm going to throw a grenade, which is one of these. It's actually on a button, so I'm not going to click it. So when I hit B, it gives me this AoE thing. Now, if I have a target, right, my mouse is not being used at all. I just double tapped it and it went to my target. So it brings up the AoE and then you can throw it at the target. With that on, you're able to do that, and it's very, very useful. Now going into flight text, this is what my settings are. You can change them accordingly. Some of these are just not necessary, but some of them are, nice, I guess you could say. Then also this right here. Not all the time will it tell you, but sometimes it's kind of nice to have. I have it turned off personally because I'm always paying attention. But if you're having a hard time paying attention to your health, definitely recommend leaving that on. Then for this will allow you to see when you kill somebody or when you're defeated. So you'll be able to see what you get killed by, but also what you kill somebody with. And then enable combat logging file is basically for starbursts. It allows you to read combat logs and whatnot, so you can tell what happened in, let's say, XYZ war zone or what combat you were just in. It'll break down pretty much everything, including your allies and the enemy team. Then with sound, these are my sound settings. I turn off music volume because it actually does play music in the background, and I think it conflicts with the rest of the game sound. Again, I play with sound because I do listen to sound cues, and without sound cues, I don't really know if my abilities are going off when they're supposed to. One of the worst classes to probably play without sound is probably going to be combat or carnage, because you never know when your massacre is actually landing, and I use that sound cue of those abilities hitting to know how many stacks I have. Going into chat, there's pretty much nothing special here. User interface, there's a couple things changing here. Obviously, you can slow down and see how I have my thing set up if you want to copy mine, but the main one would be use operation frames as group frames. Definitely recommend that. And then for cooldowns, this is what I have right here. I have the text size ramped up and show tenths of a second ramped up. You don't need to have tenths of a second even turned on, but I do. What this basically means is it makes these numbers right here bigger. So if I went down to here, it makes it real tiny. You can almost not see it. But at 20, you can see it a little bit better. So with my peripheral vision, I'm able to see my cooldowns a lot better without having to ever look down. And then these are the rest of the things here. I definitely recommend turning on highlight triggered abilities for buffs and debuffs. I believe that shows up in your UI, right? And then graphics, this is what I'm running right now. Usually I don't play on this, I play on high, turn off bloom, and sometimes I'll turn these back up. But for the most part, this is what I play on. But right now I'm on ultra just for video's sake, since we're not actually doing anything. It's GSF, social, not too important, but there is something I have turned off here. I think it's here, right? No, I guess it's not here. Here it is. Okay. So I have nameplate on self, nameplate on enemy NPCs, nameplate on companion. Most of this is still in flashpoints. Nameplate on friendly players, nameplate on enemy players. I don't have it on friendly companions or enemy companions because there's never a situation where I would ever see them anyway. There's skill nameplates of distance on. Don't turn this off because it's actually terrible and it looks horrible. And I'm pretty sure it negatively impacts your frame rate. I've always show resolve bar on. You don't have to have this on. Always show class symbol. I have this on. The more information you can get from looking at your screen, the better. Knowing what class you're dealing with is really important for how you need to fight against them. Always show health bar is on because my eyes are always in the middle of the screen. And then I turn off show guild names and show guild heralding, whatever. I can't pronounce that. Forgive me. It's this little icon right here. So you never see that on my screen, and you can still see my guild if I click on myself. And if you click on somebody, you'll also be able to see their guild. So that just gets rid of the excess clutter on the nameplates. I wish there was one to turn off titles in Legacy, but unfortunately there's not. Now you'll see this little thing here. If you click on this, it brings you an option to color each individual class if you want to, but also you can go to default. Each of it do this. It'll change all of them. All right, this is what that default is, but if we go to classic, for example, this is the old colors. They're mostly correct in colors. The only difference really is that the art is different. So the colors look a lot more strange. And there was also a brief time that the Inquisitor, so the Sage and Sork, is the same color as the Assassin, or vice versa, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was vice versa. So things do look probably a little bit weird if you haven't seen this color layout in a while. You can use this. The nice way to think of it when it's laid out like this is that everybody on the screen is a bounty hunter, or the Republic version of that. And then yellow and orange is always an agent. If it's orange, it's an operative. If it's yellow, it's a sniper/gun center. And then red and purple is always warrior. So purple would be Juggernaut Guardian. Red would be Sentinel and Marauder. And then for blue and like bluish, darkest blue / purple, it's definitely got a hint of purple in it. At least that's what it looks like. Very cool color. I really like that one. So the light blue one would now be the Assassin and Shadow, and then the other two would be Sage and Sorcerer. So that's one way to think of it. And the color coordination really helps. Or you can just go with the default, where pretty much all the freaking colors are different. It's not terrible. There is some sort of direction that they had here. I don't really like it. I would say that for sure, but there is at least some sort of reasoning for it. So for example, you got blue on the Republic side for the warrior. You got red for Imperial. You basically have darker colors on the Imperial side and lighter colors on the Republic side. It's probably the easiest way to put it, but I'm used to this after they changed it and they gave us no way to go back to classic. So I just leave that alone. Also, if you're colorblind, there's colorblind ones that supposedly help. I am actually semi-colorblind. I can't remember which one it is. I have a hard time seeing red. Can never remember the name. I can't like how to put it. Like, it's not like I can't see red. Like I can see this red, but there's certain shades of red that I have a hard time seeing. That's why there is a color bound filter, I believe, or colorblind filter. My bad. I know that they added it in. So this is pretty cool. I'm pretty sure this is the one that I'm wanting, right? Now, if you look at this and you're not colorblind, this is going to be ugly as hell. It looks mostly fine to me. Its colors are kind of faded. So in WoW and other games, there's a filter that you could slide here. If you could lower the filter for this, it'd be amazing. I think it would really help me a lot. But it is definitely pretty nice for those people that are colorblind. That's another new thing. And then we have keybindings. We're not going to go into that just yet, but I want to show you that you have keybind imports and exports. This is something that you really want to take advantage of as soon as possible. And it also shows you if you ever have like double binds. So this area right here on the right hand side is how to see if you ever have anything double bound. And the first thing I want to go into right here is that with double binds like this, if you use num or other combination keys and you're like hitting control or something and you accidentally hit one of the directional arrows, like let's say you accidentally hit the Windows key while you're holding control and you're hitting let's say you're hitting the numpad. Let's say you have all of your buttons on your numpad, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's say you have your numpad bound to your mouse. If you're to hit the Windows key and hit 8, 6, 4, and 2, it'll be a directional input, as you can see here. So it says up arrow, down arrow. Well, when you hit the Windows key, it'll actually activate 8, 6, 4, and 2. If you hit those numbers, it'll actually work as directional movement. So to explain that real quick, I will go ahead and hit them, and it shouldn't move my character if I haven't enabled. Yeah. Very weird. But that is a thing. It's kind of hard to replicate sometimes. But what would it be? We are on PowerTech. I'm pretty sure I don't have that enabled on PowerTech at all. Oh, I do. But basically, you could just unbind these if you don't actually use them, especially if you're ever using, how to put it? There's a word for it. If you're ever using combination keys, basically, this is when you'll run into issues with this. Sometimes you can get your character like stuck going around in circles. So for example, if your num lock gets turned on and you're holding one of those buttons at the time, it'll get you looping around in circles, and you'll be like, how the hell do I stop this? Well, it's just an input. You could log out and log back in and fix it. But if it happens in a game, there's obviously a problem. So that is one thing to think about. Definitely maybe remove the extra binds that you have. This shift up and down. I've never heard of that before, but that's interesting. Or actually, no, this is GSF movement. My bad. Okay, I knew that. But basically, the same ideal exists, right? This is something right here, movement right here. Okay, so jump. For some reason, I have num0 also on jump. I'd never change that, I guess. But for the most part, you can see that movements are still double bound. So for example, if I want to turn left or right, I can only do it with the arrow keys, which again, if I hold the Windows key and use these buttons on my keyboard, it'll do the same thing, as you can see there. So if you ever have these, definitely unbind these if you ever have conflicting issues. Another interesting thing is it says mouse button 4 and turn on my num lock, but it actually doesn't. Not sure why that's a thing. But for example, this is my number 4 button, and now you see my mouse turns purple, which is a perfect time to go into focus target before we go into our UI, because UI is going to take a while, and we're already at 20 minutes. So real quick, this is, yeah, okay, so focus target is put up here. So I'm targeting this person, my focus target is up here. Neither of these guys am I in combat with. Let's just get rid of this real quick. Just starting to bother me. Okay, it doesn't want to go away. Whatever. So this button right here, when I hold it down, it turns purple. Now I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. So I'll do the keybindings targeting. So you need to set this set focus target / swap set focus target. So Control F is my obtain focus target. So for example, I hit that button, gets me the target back. I have no focus target. If I target myself and I do that, I'm now up here, and I'm now my focus target. So I could do something really silly like this, target myself, but actually hit this person right here. Now, there are some problems, and I'll go into that in just a second after I explain what button I'm holding down to do that. You can also focus target one of your allies, and you can always get the target, or you can focus target somebody that's doing a lot of damage. You can always take their target. However, if they're targeting themselves and they're using focus target to DPS, which is definitely pretty difficult to do, and even at group rank, you barely ever saw anybody doing that. But it is an option. This is what I'm talking about, focus target modifier. Now, when I'm holding down this button, everything goes purple because it's targeting my focus target. Otherwise, let's give myself this target. Normally, I'll be hitting this one because this is who I'm targeting, right? So I'll hit this person, and then if I hold this, I then go to the other person, even though I'm still targeting that person. So every now and then, that'll happen, where I attack the other person, but it's mostly just because combat's constantly resetting with the dummies. It'd be much easier if I was in actual combat. You can see it a little bit better, but you get the general idea. Now, focus target has some issues. If you hold this down for too long, your abilities will start randomly going back to the original target, like right there. It's not always consistent. So every time that you're going to do an ability, you can maybe get one ability off. So take just like maybe 0.5 of a second after holding it down, then do the ability if you want to make sure it goes off, and then you can let go of it, hold it again. Just keep doing that. Keep holding it each time right before you hit an ability. And don't hold it the whole time, because if you hold it the whole time, more chances you're going to hit your actual target and waste a global. That's been a problem ever since 4.0. I originally started thinking about making this video back in the day. Don't think they'll ever fix it, so definitely get comfortable with how it works for now. Now I want to show you guys something else that's really important. You're like, all right, target next enemy. Why is it bound to your button next to enter? Well, I don't actually have caps lock bound anymore. Most people have a keyboard where they can remap their keys. If you don't, you can probably get an external program that can do that for you. I have caps lock completely disabled. I cannot turn on caps lock even if I wanted to. Mostly because, Shift does the job anyway. Plus, I don't need caps lock in the first place. So what I do, my caps lock, is I rebind it to the button next to my enter. It can be any button that you don't use very often. I use it as a secondary way to acquire a target, whether it's target nearest ally or target nearest enemy, and so on and so forth. Which is another thing that I forgot. Target nearest enemy, target next enemy. Having both of these bound if you're like a ranged player and you're not really, like there's nothing you can really do with team support, like you're not able to cleanse or pull, or really do anything too helpful. Having like both versions bound will help you dot spread and do more AoE. But with targeting, I think it's like here. I could be wrong. No, it doesn't seem like it's in here. There's one of these, if I can find it real quick. It could be removed by now. I think it's probably the baseline how it works. But I could be wrong. Yeah, I don't see it anymore. Should be like targeting, but I guess it's not. It's definitely not here. General conversation map, tooltip. Oh yeah, if you want more detailed tooltips, this is what I turned on in order to see that, and then stat summarization. Turn those on if you want better tooltips. I don't see anything about targeting. Okay, well, there used to be a setting. I guess it's just on by default. or it's changed somewhere. Basically, nearest enemy, right? You can actually have it set to where it'll target like center screen, like always. So like usually when you see me tab targeting, you'll see me like do something like this, and I'll move my character's head intentionally to target this person, even though theoretically this person is actually closer to me. I'm staring at this person, so it'll go to that person. So character positioning for that is really important. That's something you want to think about when you're tab targeting and how to make better use of it. Now that we got that out of the way, normal quick bar. I don't actually use this bar because I don't like the way it looks and I don't like anything here. So I just completely disabled that bar. I use the other bars because they all look the same. Gives it more unified, clean looking look, which is definitely what I like. I like a more minimalistic looking like UI. And if you want to bind your hut ball, this right here, temporary quick bar slot 1, this is where your hut ball will be. So definitely do that. Also your heroic moment stuff will also be here too. But that's generally really useful for hut ball. I know it's really annoying. Some people will have to try to go and keybind that, and such a pain in the ass. Now going into movement, this is another really important thing. We're briefly going to go through this because most people have already gotten this down, but I do still see people moving backward to do this. But for example, let's go to shift left, shift right. I recommend binding both of these to A and D. Stop using turn left and stop using turn right. It's not very useful. Auto run's fine. Don't really have to worry about this. Left and right, I only have it bound to my buttons here. These are the ones over by my numpad. But for the most part, that's pretty much it. So shift left and shift right. Why do we use shift left and shift right? Just like in my previous video, if I don't get stuck. Let's say I'm targeting this guy. Let's remove my focus target real quick. And we're targeting this guy. All right, my character is facing this way. I can face this way or I can face that way. It doesn't really matter. What I can do here is that if I need to start cutting this person, you see how my character is not really looking until I'm using my ability? I can move out of the way and still hit them while I'm running away without actually ever even looking at them. This is something that's very vital to learn as a range player. It's something that you really want to take advantage of. Because if you're trying to hit somebody and you're S keying like this, I see so many people doing this. Don't do this. Straight left and right and move like this. And what you can do is use this click, which is your L and B. If you use your L and B and you're moving like this. So basically if I'm doing my character sideways and I'm holding D, I'm holding my L and B so I can see what I'm hitting and I can still hit them. I'll just give an example. So if you're trying to kite it, let's get my character right first. Since I'm not playing range, it's a little harder to show, but basically I'm able to watch, but still run away. This means I'm maintaining full speed, still able to hit them. That's how you properly kite. Nothing too crazy about it. It's not too hard. Now that we've gotten through most of the important stuff, the only thing really left now is go through our UI. So you see how bad my UI is currently. We're going to quickly clean that up. I want to show you guys how to basically go through all of this real quick. So conversation, all these elements right here, this is really only for story. So you don't really need to worry about any of this. The main HUD is going to show pretty much everything. Don't recommend going into that right away. I would probably go look at, you also probably don't have to worry about group frames. It's going to be using operation frames if you turn that on. Operation frames, this is something that you want to move because this is where your PvP group is going to show up, so you can move this wherever you want. And then space combat, again, this is not going to be relevant unless you're doing GSF. And then war zone. This is really where you're going to start editing your UI and putting stuff where you want it to be. So for example, temporary ability bar is going to be your hut ball. So your hut ball is going to be there. The other abilities, so operation frames can be there. All the Yavin, Destin, all that stuff, all the scorecards are going to be over here. You can move them wherever you want. You don't need to have pretty much everything enabled, but overall it's pretty nice. And if you want the traditional map, you can do that right there. So what I did was just click on it. I changed this to maximum. So save. Very nice. All right. Now, we don't necessarily want to use this UI to show you everything that I want to show you. I have a lot of ridiculous UIs, but this is the main one that I use. So the main differences that you'll see, let me focus target real quick. So I've got a target, I've got a focus target. This is where my operation frame shows up. So this is where I see my allies. So if I'm playing a support role, I know basically what's happening on my team, who's nearby, who's not. And then I've got both my targets here. This is my focus target. This is closer to the center screen, so I can always pay attention to my focus target, whether they're dead, if they're alive, they're dying, they need help, stuff like that. So if I'm guarding them, or I'm syncing with them, like taking their target, bursting somebody, stuff like that. And there's many uses for focus target. You can think of it however you want. Let's go into hitting somebody with a dot. Now this will be highlighted because it's a buff or debuff from us specifically. Now, going into the important part of buffs and debuffs, we're going to go to buff tray. These are my settings right here. Highly recommend changing these. How you, this would, I guess, say see fit. You can do highlight effects, turn this on, so you can see personal effects, sort by remaining. This is basically how I have everything set up. Definitely recommend probably copying what I have if you want something like mine, or editing it how you see fit. Then when we're going to target debuffs, which are attached to the thing, you will have to change it a little bit different. So we don't care about the buffs, so we're now not highlight it, but we have highlight debuffs on, and then we also have it set to 1 minute below, so we don't have too much clutter. And then we have show personal buffs, fly time, stuff like that. So the way the debuffs will show up will be when they were last applied. So your dot will slowly go to the last thing until you refresh it, and it'll be back up first, so on and so forth, at least for AP. That's something basic and very simple. That's something you definitely want to edit. That's probably the first thing I would tell you to edit. Then you have your own, where is it right here? Player debuff tray. I put this closer to the middle screen because I'm more used to playing BDO. I was really into BDO PvP before they changed the combat system. And I never really bothered to learn the combat system. But I got really used to my cooldowns being like right here, but also at the same time debuffs. It's very easy to see there, so I put debuffs there. So when you had forcebound last expansion, it was really important to have this, like, be able to see when you're forcebound. Nowadays, most debuffs you don't really care about. There's not really anything too crazy that you want to know about in your debuff tray, because most of them you can just see them. Most things in Star Wars have a lot of visual clarity, so you're able to actually see what's actually ailing your character, rather than being completely oblivious and having to look at your debuff tray, which is great. It's actually awesome that this game has such good visual clarity, because there's a lot of other video games that don't. Going into, after this, a quick explanation. These quick bars, again, they're random 2, 4, and 6. There's not a reason for that. The only reason that I use these over the original one, like the main one that everybody uses, is because this one lines up better with the other two. There's no special reason. There's no advantage to it. I actually think, if anything, it might be probably less optimal, but I really doubt the UI really causes that much lag anymore after they've worked it a couple of times. I have all things pretty much clustered where I want them to be. If I ever want to turn on the main quick bar, I can. Usually leave it in the middle of the screen. If it ever gets enabled via story, it's right there. But I usually just never use it because I don't like it. Everything else, pretty standard. Arena scorecard, I like to keep it like right here in this area, in case I ever need to click on this over here. Arena has a unique interaction with the game, where you can actually click on the people that you want to target through the scorecard. You can't do that any other way, and you can't click on enemy targets through just hitting somebody's name, no matter where they are or where they're hiding. You can click on them on there. Obviously, if they're stealth, you can't see them, but otherwise you're able to click on them and see them, like where, like their target UI, how far they are away, and stuff like that. So it's really nice to have your arena scorecard at least close to where you can click on them. As for anything else important, don't think I'm missing anything, but I suppose I could explain this real quick. So when we're looking at a target, right, we're currently 3.41 meters away, and we can go all the way up to, I think it's like 15 for AP. Yeah, so this is how far my range is. Pretty absurd, but you're able to see how far away somebody is. So let's say we're playing an arena. This person's like behind a wall and everything. If I clicked on the arena scorecard, it would show me, oh, this person's here. They'll tell you how far away they are. And if you start moving in the right direction, number goes down. But if you're going in the wrong direction, number goes up. So that's one thing to think of. Very helpful. Not super difficult to figure out, though. Then I suppose final things that I want to leave you guys off outside of UI. Target of targets over here, player cast bar, target cast bar, stuff like that. The target frame is not necessarily as big as a player frame. And that's just because the art doesn't actually load, and you can't really get the sizing perfect for that. Now that I've told you that, you're probably looking at that and you're like, man, that's kind of annoying. Why is that like that? Well, unfortunately, it's just the way it is. Last thing I want to leave you guys with is the keybind interactions in the game and why I recommend not to use combination keys. So if you're saying, let's say Shift WASD, let's say those buttons are letting you move and whatnot, I don't recommend using those. And the reason why I recommend against using those is that there are some issues with it. Obviously, first thing that will come up as an issue is if you have anything double bound, right? So you've got your first bind up here, and then you have your second bind down there, right? If you ever have anything double bound, you'll have an issue with that. So let's say my target modifier to hold it, to make it purple, is, let's say, Shift F. Let's say it's Shift F, right? And then I want to use Braille Shot. It's on F, right? If I'm holding Shift F, I'm going to never be able to hit F to hit my focus target, if that makes sense. Because I'm already holding Shift, and it will always think that I'm just trying to re-hit the bind that I'm already hitting. So that's one issue. And then there's another issue of, how do you call it? Let's say it's Shift F still, and I'm trying to use an ability that's not Shift, right? So it's 2, 3, 4. There's sometimes conflictions where it just won't go off or it'll be delayed. There's definitely, if you have not keybinds, but other abilities like defensive abilities that are on combinations, you can actually end up activating them on accident when you're trying to hit something else. There is a delay, and when there's animation lag, especially if you experience a lot of animation lag in this game or lag in general, you'll run into a lot of these issues. There's a reason why I don't use any combination keys, and there's a reason why my keybinds say num 7, num 5, num 8. Sit on my mouse. I do everything I can to avoid using any combinations because of that. If you ever had issues of using your Shift combination or your Control combination or anything, highly recommend first is to remove any excess double binds, whether it's targeting, quick bar, movement, miscellaneous, etc. Definitely make sure that those are gone first, and then see if you're still having the issue. And then if you're still having the issue, I highly recommend maybe making the transition out of combination keys to just using regular keys. And the best way I would say to do regular keys is to get a mouse with buttons on it. I know for most people are like, oh, I've already got that, or oh, I don't want to do that. After a little bit, you'll actually make sense of it. Now, when you're trying to transition to keybinding and changing your keybinds, which is a topic that I almost forgot about, this is something that I want to go over. So this will be a little bit longer. We already have 40 minutes and counting. So basically, how to think of it. At one point, I used combination keys, and it was really bad for me because every now and then I would get animation lag, and when that would happen, I would accidentally use something that I didn't want to use, and or certain things would go off when I tried to use them retroactively with a different keybind because I'd be holding a Shift combination, and then I'm trying to use a different ability that's not a Shift combination, and that causes problems, basically. Sometimes with the delay, or the lag within the game, it'll think that you're still holding shift when you're not, or control when you're not. And that's a problem. I don't think I really need to explain that one. That's obviously an issue. But let's say you're transitioning from that, or you're just trying to start keybinding. Let's say this was like Shift F. I've always had this as Shift F. Don't know it as anything else. What you can do for number 7, let's find it in our keybinds real quick. So that'd be quick bar, number 7. So what you can do, if you want to, do it 2 ways. So what you could do, all right, if I do Shift F, I don't use Shift F anymore, right? So now that I've got double bound, I need Shift F to use this button, and I also use num 7 to get off this button. Either way, it doesn't matter. You can leave it as Shift F, and you can bind your mouse. Let's say this is number 7 on your mouse, right? So I'm just hitting 7 on my mouse. All right, now what you can do is change your mouse button in the program if you have a program for it. Most people do. If you have a mouse with buttons on the side, set it to Shift F, make it just Shift F. And once you've gotten used to using Shift F, or not Shift F, but using the button on the mouse, then transition it away from Shift F, and then just use what do you call it? I'm gonna get away from this person because it's gonna be noisy. But whenever you hit the 7 button on your mouse, it'll do Shift F. So therefore, you'll be able to do it with the keyboard, and you'll also be able to use it with your mouse, which is going to be incredibly useful for learning the muscle memory that you need for using your mouse like that. And then once you've made the transition and you built the muscle memory for this ability, and you sometimes still forget it, and sometimes you're hitting your old keybind, you can double bind it, so you can still use it with Shift F. So I'm hitting Shift F here, not hitting number 7. So you'll be able to double bind and make sure that you get the ability off no matter what, but also still building muscle memory for that ability, if that makes sense. Now, if you're somebody that doesn't bind and you're trying to get used to binding, you've never bound really before, best thing I can tell you is to not rush into it and try to do a whole bunch of keybinds all at once. I know a lot of people will end up trying to do that, and I recommend against it. And the main reason why I recommend against it is because it's a lot of things to remember all at once. You want to keybind something with a reason. So, for example, I have probably an inherent advantage over other people, but also I have so much muscle memory for all my classes. It's a little bit different for me. But initially, if I change a keybind, I can probably adjust to it a little bit faster than most people just because I have photographic memory. It's not perfect, but I've worked very hard to keep it over the years. And you don't need that. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm just not fast enough, or I'm just not that good. That's not what you need. You just need to put in effort. That's really, there's no other word to put it. So let's say F1 ability. Most people maybe can't reach F1 if they can. I'm used to hitting F keys from RuneScape, and they're comfortable for me to hit. F1 on pretty much all of my classes is a hard stop. So when you create a use for a button and you give it a shared use across all your classes, it makes it a lot more easier for your brain to associate that button with an action in game. And what I just said there, associating a button with an action in game, is the best way to start keybinding. So for example, you know how W is to move forward, A is straight left, D is a straight right, space is to jump. Just like that, give a button a reason to be hit or association with an ability, and try to keep it similar between all your classes. You'll be able to start giving your abilities more buttons that make sense, and will feel more fluid across most of your classes. So for example, in every game I ever played, F2 is always my interrupt, and that'll probably never change. Now with that out of the way, I don't recommend doing all the buttons all at once. I would recommend just working on one button. Maybe, let's say if you've never keybound before, I would recommend at least one ability a week. at maximum. Going a little bit more on that, unless you're a fast learner, might be a little bit overwhelming and discourage you and make you stop keybinding. Now, if you're not in that boat and you're got a couple keybinds, but you're struggling, right? Definitely recommend before you go to bed, which is gonna sound weird, to maybe parse a little bit and use your binds. And if you keep messing up and forgetting your binds, don't worry about it. You're not going for a perfect parse. You're not going for a good parse. You're just there to hit buttons and build that muscle memory. Give association to your buttons. And before you go to bed, obviously do this just for a little bit. It'll help you remember a lot easier because when you go to bed, you're not really thinking about anything. In the morning, you kind of remember what you were doing right before you went to bed. So it allows you to commit it to your memory a lot easier. This is actually really useful. You can do this with other things in real life too. It's not just video games. It's a little nerdy, but there's a reason why, sometimes studying right before you go to bed is a good thing. And you can use that in many different aspects of your life, including learning keybinds and creating muscle memory for different kind of things, not just video gaming. So that's definitely something to think about. And for the most part, if you guys have any questions about keybinding or you want keybind suggestions or stuff like that, you can always look at my videos. A lot of my keybinds are straightforward. I know a lot of people probably can't hit the F keys. If you can't hit the F keys, that's totally fine. You can get a smaller keyboard. You can get a bigger keyboard. Really depends up to you, but you don't have to use your F keys. A few keybinds that you probably would forget about is obviously every button that's close to W, A, S, and D is very important. So for example, if you rebind caps lock, there's an extra keybind right there. If you use the button right next to 1, that's an extra keybind right there. The obvious buttons of Z, X, C, V, F, R, E, and Q. Those are very obvious. Much to 5. I don't really use 6 or 7 very often anymore. I pretty much never use 7, 8, and 9. I usually just use those for miscellaneous keybinds that I don't really use very often. But obviously you have to move your hand a little bit to activate those keys. So I try to keep all of your really close, easily accessible keybinds for your important abilities, and the ones that aren't important, put them elsewhere, I guess you could say. So for example, I have my mid pack on home and end, and you're like, there's no way he's moving his hand over there to hit those buttons. And you're right. Those are actually 11 and 12 on my Naga. Alright, no, not Naga. Don't use Naga anymore. I use Corsair because my Naga always ends up breaking, and Corsair has been very good to me so far. So if you are having issues with Razor, I'd probably go to the Corsair, but results may vary. Sometimes you can just get bad product. That's one thing to think about, especially on classes like, let's say, PT, for example. Shoulder cannon has its own global cooldown, so it's very important for it to be on a button that I can spam while I'm also spamming my regular rotational abilities. So for example, let's turn on my keybind profile, because I've done keybind profile for each one of my characters, and that's just been the way that I've played for a long time. I can't really seem to fix that. Now going into this explanation of what's going to go on, I'm going to be hitting my normal keybinds, and then I'm also going to be spamming on my mouse number 2 so I can do damage here. So you can see that it has like a 0.5 of GCD, and then my regular abilities have about 1.4. And you see this is going off, and it's going off separately, and it's mostly just because I'm just hitting on my mouse, and I'm able to spam it on my mouse while I'm also doing other things in game. It's very helpful. Highly recommend, at least for shoulder cannon. There's a couple other abilities that are like this. Always have a spammable keybind available probably on your mouse, just so you can have more freedom for your, I guess more agency, I guess would be the word, for your other abilities. So you don't ever have to like hurt your fingers. If you're ever hurting your fingers, I highly recommend stopping. Once you get Arthur, there's nothing you can do anymore. And what I mean by Arthur is arthritis. If you end up getting like hand cramps and stuff like that, stop. Really stop. It is not worth it. No video game, especially not this game, is worth getting arthritis or doing hand cramps and stuff like that. The only thing you can do after you've gotten a problem with whether it's your back, your neck, your spine, your hands, you can only maintain it from that point on. You can't ever really get rid of it. So if you ever have those issues, I highly recommend stopping, maybe changing your keybinds, using a different keyboard. You know, there's all kinds of things that you can do. There's tons of stuff out there. We're living in, I guess, a more educated age of technology, so we have a lot more availability on a lot of things that would actually just help you in the long run. But definitely, if you're younger and you've been playing games a lot, you don't want to mess up your hands. So definitely don't make uncomfortable keybinds. If it's not comfortable, just don't do it. Don't have to be super hard on yourself and like, oh, I need to get this keybind. No, it's not that important. So I just want you guys to take that in. At the end of the day, you know, do you get pressured that you don't keybind and keybinding just hurts, or you have arthritis, or you maybe are scared of getting it and your hands hurt sometimes? Don't worry about it. It's not worth it. Other than that, that's pretty much it for this video. It is a long one. It's 51 minutes. I was not expecting it for it to go on this long. I also didn't expect to sit here and talk for 51 minutes, but I wanted to make sure that I covered everything that I've learned over the years since I last made this video. It pretty much covers everything in the last video, but also covers a little bit more. I'm going to be completely sorry that I'm not going to be able to put timestamps very well for this video, but nonetheless, I hope this helps, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll be more than happy to help. Other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.